A used car crash, delinquencies rising, and an economy that's supposedly good. In this video, not only will we cover the economy, but we'll also catch you up with a little bit of clarity in what we talked about yesterday with Muslim immigration and what's going on with Gaza and Israel. Some premature celebrating that actually happened, unfortunately, in the Gaza Strip and why. We'll touch on some of the latest earnings, and we'll also touch on Donald Trump and the full load of information we got from Stormy Daniels yesterday, as well as that jail threat. But first, we've got to start with FTX. Remember FTX, the crypto broker dealer that ended up being a massive fraud thanks to the most honest man in the world not being so honest? Well, this most honest man in the world almost caught Taylor Swift for, quite frankly, concert tours with a lush and beautiful sponsorship package, which Taylor Swift had already signed. Taylor Swift never ended up pitching FTX, though, because Sam Bankman-Fried delayed signing his portion, potentially playing too many video games, for about 30 to 60 days. That's at least what we're hearing from reports. And then the company went bankrupt. The most generous man in the world looped in Tom Brady, Kevin O'Leary, stadiums, referees, you name it. And now the company is actually expected to pay back more than it owes to folks. Now, there's some remarkable detail to this, but let's start with knowing that usually when a company goes bankrupt, this might be what you have in the company, and what you get back is usually pennies on the dollar. So let's say you had a stable coin at a company like Voyager Digital. You might just get a fraction of your money back. Maybe 5% of your money back if you're lucky, as a lot of the money that's available goes into legal fees and defaults. It sucks. Well, in the case of FTX, because of the rise in crypto valuations, FTX per Bloomberg is expected to pay back 118% of the original amount that people had stuck on the platform when the company went BK. Now, I remember in the weeks leading up to the FTX collapse, we made videos on the channel here encouraging people to get out of the platform, that the risk was not worth staying on the platform. Well, fortunately now, even though that company did collapse, the company is able to pay back 100% of principal plus interest. Now, of course, some of the tokens, had they been held through the crypto crash, that is, from when the collapse occurred through the rest of the crypto crash that occurred, and then all the way to today, would be worth more if you had the actual token back. Remember, FTX is just paying back in cash. But it sure beats investing in a company or depositing money in a company and only getting a fraction to $0 back. I personally invested in BlockFi, invested about $420,000 and, well, $420.69, I believe was what we invested, $420,690. That's a serious number that we invested. And we lost all of that. That's a bummer. That was going to help go to pay for all 7 of my children's college. Boom! Evaporated. Now I'll have to find other ways. Have I mentioned that you can get life insurance in as little as 5 minutes? Link down below. Anyway, that's a paid partnership. But anyway, let's consider for a moment. Yes, if somebody held through the rest of the crash, they'd have more money in the actual underlying tokens than the cash they're getting back. But the reality is it's so rare to get any money back in a bankruptcy. This is really great news. People are not only expected to get their principal back, but they're also expected to get interest back. Great news, and it's really the end of an era for the crypto collapse. It gets the SBFs out of the world. It gets CZ on a straight and narrow path. He's only spending 4 months in jail anyway. So frankly, maybe now we can get to a regulated environment and get BTC and other crypto projects on the straight and narrow path to success, which is very exciting, and I'm optimistic about the future. Now, with that, let's hit Donnie T. So, in case you haven't heard, oh boy, Donald Trump, We had a long story from Stormy Daniels yesterday about what Donald Trump has been up to. Apparently, Stormy Daniels began her career as an exotic dancer, danced for strip clubs at the age of 17 in Louisiana, and first met Trump at a golf tournament where she invited Donald Trump, or I'm sorry, where she was invited by one of Donald Trump's apparently bodyguards, this is her point of view, to dinner, to which originally she said F no, but then at some point, after giving Trump a copy of one of the adult films that she wrote, directed, and starred in when she was 27, she ended up having sex with Donald Trump. Now, during the relationship that the two had, apparently at one point Donald Trump suggested that she could prove that she's not just a dumb bimbo, that she's smarter than people think, that she's smart, blonde, and beautiful, and she could shake things up and get a lot of attention by going on The Apprentice. She suggested she's not a business person and there's no way she could win, so why would she? To which Donald Trump allegedly said, "What if I tell you what the challenges are? I have control. Maybe I can give you an edge, so at least you can make a good showing." That was a bit surprising to me because I grew up with watching the original Apprentice, which I really enjoyed, and it somewhat breaks my heart to think that it was rigged, but then again, that's reality TV for you. Now, Stormy Daniels went into testimony on what happened in 2006 in that hotel room. She suggested that Donald Trump was arrogant, would try to one-up her and steal the conversation, and it wasn't until she threatened to swat him with a paddle that he started becoming more polite. In fact, at one point when she was invited to Trump's hotel room, he was wearing silk-style pajamas, which she asked if Donald Trump was aware that, well, I should say, the quote was, "Does Mr. Hefner," as in Hugh Hefner, "know you stole his pajamas?" Donald Trump apparently then changed, and they ended up having a sexual relationship. Apparently, this began, as Stormy Daniels remembers, with her bra on, her clothes and shoes off, and we were in the missionary position. To which, of course, the judge and the defense quickly objected and sustained the motion and ended the detail of what was going on, or at least what Stormy Daniels recalls. Now, remember, it's really important that Stormy Daniels establish at least some level of detail because Stormy Daniels needs to prove that she actually had sex with Donald Trump. The mission of the defense, which tried to declare a mistrial when this sort of detail was revealed, which didn't work now but might work in appeal. It's a good setup for an appeal in the future should Donald Trump lose. But what you have to think is the defense needs to make Stormy Daniels seem non-credible. Like she's vengeful, out for hate. She was a poor person, needed money, took the money by extorting Donald Trump, and therefore you've got a defense that beats her up by asking in cross-ex, "Do you hate President Trump?" And Stormy Daniels responds, "Yes." "Do you want him to go to jail?" Stormy Daniels replies, "I want him to be held accountable." They're trying to discredit her. This is a very common defense strategy in court, is basically discredit the people that are making the defense look weak. And obviously the star testimony here is from Stormy Daniels, as allegedly she had sex with Donald Trump, which Donald Trump then paid to cover up. Now, Donald Trump and the defense take the position that we did pay to cover it up, but it was a fake story. Therefore, no crime was ever committed, and I shouldn't be in this courtroom at all anyway, and therefore the gag orders against me are illegal, and I will continue to exercise my First Amendment right to free speech. Which, of course, after 10 violations, worth $10,000 in fines in total, the judges decided, look, keep this up, you might have to go to jail. Donald Trump responded to this with, "If that's what it takes to defend the Constitution, then I'm ready for my night in jail." His actual quote was, "Our Constitution is much more important than jail. It's not even close. I'll give that sacrifice any day." We know that Donald Trump is really into branding, so that's what we got. Now, that probably would lead to some political donations as well if that ended up happening, so probably wouldn't be the worst thing that would happen to Donald Trump. But anyway, the point here is that while we end up getting a testimony in future court hearings, it's worth noting that there's a lot of attention going into Donald Trump's hush money case, and the insights gleaned from Stormy Daniels were certainly salacious, but they don't rise to the evidence probably needed to say that what happened was indeed 100% fact. Obviously, there are no screenshots, descriptions of unique bodily features or defects in certain area on Donald Trump, at least from what we've heard. And so there are limited ways to say that her story could be 100% credible, and probably it's going to be challenging to argue that a jury should believe everything Stormy Daniels said, at least to a level of beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the highest burden of proof in a criminal trial. Remember, this is not a civil trial where you just have the burden of the preponderance of the evidence. This is a criminal fraud trial. Now, of course, it is for a Class E felony, which is the lowest form of a felony, but the burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. So the jury needs to be convinced that, beyond a reasonable doubt, Stormy Daniels had sex with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump then paid to cover it up by misallocating business and campaign funding and disclosures and lying about it after the fact. All of these multiple different elements, a problem if Stormy Daniels did actually have sex with Donald Trump. Pretty wild. With that, let's go into the used car crash. As auto insurance rates are skyrocketing to the highest levels since the 70s, the heaviest, keep in mind, this contributing to the heaviest impact in our core CPI readings, the latest Manheim Used Vehicle Index is down 14% from a year ago. So in other words, everyone who owns a car is seeing the value of their car collapse. You can see that on screen here. This is a chart of that used vehicle index collapsing here on the right, down a substantial amount. It's worth noting where the declines from a year ago are. Luxury cars down only 12.9%. Electric vehicles holding their values relatively the worst, down 17.5%. Compact cars down 17.6%. Midsize down 16.8%. And pickups only down 15.2%. This all comes, this sort of frustration in the economy as a result of assets that almost all of us own, like used cars, and things becoming more expensive around us, like food and groceries and insurances. We're being told the economy is doing just fine as long as you ignore things like the transition into delinquency by loan type. You can see here the 30-day delinquency on credit cards is substantially higher than what we've seen, quite frankly, since about 2006. Student loan delinquencies is still at rock bottom, as some of those payments just are essentially deferred in perpetuity. But auto loan delinquencies rising to the highest levels that we've seen since about 2010. Keep in mind the credit card delinquencies, I should mention, highest level since about 2006, excluding the Great Recession. Obviously, if you include the Great Recession, you're the highest level since about 2011. And you're now even starting to see those mortgage delinquencies start rising, soon to be above pre-pandemic levels. Something else to keep in mind is the 5-year break-even has slid to 2.32%, and we're now pricing in 1.69 rate cuts for the year. After Apple's discounting in China, shipments are up 12% following those March discounts, and Uber took a surprising loss this morning due to investments in other companies, write-downs, and a lot of legal fees, as well as some less than expected ridership. Frankly, an overall decline in ridership in an area like Latin America. So coming out of nowhere here with a decline in ridership, though the rest of the world and North America, much like Lyft, actually doing quite well. You did have companies here provide some insight yesterday. Skipping past just their earnings, I wanted to go into their earnings call and just see what some of these companies are saying about the economy. And I know a lot of consumers don't feel this way because things just feel expensive and wrong at the moment. But a lot of these companies, at least for themselves, are still guiding positivity. Look at Toast, for example. We don't see a reason why the second quarter would be different for demand. Strong, bullish. The consumer is still cranking, no material changes. If anything, we're on the path to finally getting out of a loss and being gap break even, by the end of the year. Lyft sees a continuation of trends seen at the end of 2023 with lower prices, actually, which is somewhat deflationary, which is great. In fact, they actually say, we don't say this externally, but we want to lower prices. We want there to be a better balance between drivers and demand. And we continue to see strong demand. While Disney also saw higher spend per person at places like Disneyland, they did see and they currently do still see healthy demand. I got to add a Y there. They are seeing a moderation from post-COVID travel, and they're seeing higher cost inflation as well. So a little bit of a mixed bag over at Disney. They did also miss on some of their subscriber numbers yesterday. Wynn has noticed that demand has been relatively healthy throughout April, with the Sphere, remember that big circle sphere they now have in Vegas, driving a lot of visitation to Vegas. And they repriced their hotel rooms daily, which I thought was quite interesting, to make sure they could squeeze every last penny out of anybody visiting the Wynn Resort. But then again, probably most of the hotels do that, and the Wynn and Encore being some of the more luxurious options on the Strip. Then we've got Gaza and Muslim immigration. I'd like to just be very, very clear here. In yesterday's Meet Kevin report, we talked about Muslim immigration, and we got a lot of commentary on how Muslim immigration in, for example, the United Kingdom is potentially diluting UK values. Now, I reported from a neutral point of view. I analyzed a city that was trending on social media and noticed a nominal change in really the makeup of that district within Bradford of the United Kingdom over the last 20 years. But commentary was very clearly on one side of the discussion here. Many refer to immigration expanding for Muslims into the United Kingdom, not just in the last 20, 25-year period, but really from the 1950s, 70s, 80s, all the way to today, which has led to a substantial increase in the Muslim population in parts of the United Kingdom and Europe, which many people are frustrated by. This is, of course, just an observation from commentary. It's just my goal to be here and provide neutral perspective, and when popular opinion is on another side, I'll mention it. That's not going to dictate what the neutral analysis is, but from a neutral point of view, we can clearly say immigration is a top priority for many voters, and ensuring their voices are heard is very important. But it makes sense because the same frustration is the frustration that you're seeing with asylum grantees like Syrians in Germany, Muslims in the United Kingdom, immigrants who are coming through the southern border in the United States, maybe even the northern border, Okay, mostly the southern border, whether they're Chinese immigrants or they're from Venezuela or wherever they're from. There's a lot of frustration around the border crisis, and it's about high time countries start listening to their voters. Similarly, I received multiple messages yesterday suggesting that Israel's deepening incursion into, quite frankly, the Gaza Strip and the Rafah crossing, which was supposed to be a Biden red line, which has now been crossed, is solely to, quote, go to the end of the earth to find the remaining roughly 130 hostages still alive. If my family member were a hostage, I'd completely understand. I hope the situation ends rapidly so both the hostages can be freed and death can end in general. War is terror. Killings and death are bad. They're wrong no matter what, and it sucks. It just sucks. The human devastation that's happening in Gaza is horrid. I'm not pointing any blame. We're simply making a statement that war and devastation is terrible, and I wish it ends as soon as possible. So do Gazans. Gazans were celebrating after Hamas's acceptance of the Israeli deal, which was announced about a day and a half ago. And then unfortunately, tanks rolled in. As Israel suggested, the deal was different from what Israel had proposed, and now the ceasefire is quite frankly unclear and unresolved. So unfortunately, the crisis for now in the Gaza Strip continues, and Egypt continues to build its shelters. Now, keep in mind, I'm a big fan of providing as much neutral perspective as I can. This is the second Meet Kevin report that we're doing. I hope you enjoy this style of reporting where we can cover multiple different important topics all in one. If you have any comments, suggestions, please let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Make sure to read all of them. Really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Goodbye, and good luck.
Why not advertise these things that you told us here? I feel like nobody else knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.
Even though I'm a licensed financial advisor, licensed real estate broker, and becoming a stockbroker, this video is not personalized advice for you. It is not tax, legal, or otherwise personalized advice tailored to you. This video provides generalized perspective, information, and commentary. Any third-party content I show shall not be deemed endorsed by me. This video is not and shall never be deemed reasonably sufficient information for the purposes of evaluating a security or investment decision. Any links or promoted products are either paid affiliations or products or services we may benefit from. I also personally operate an actively managed ETF. I may personally hold or otherwise hold long or short positions in various securities, potentially including those mentioned in this video. However, I have no relationship to any issuer other than househack, nor am I presently acting as a market maker. Make sure if you're considering investing in househack to always read the PPM at househack.com.